I usually talk about change, and I really feel like what I want to talk about increasingly is not change so much as those who lead change, those who, through their examples, don't control and command, but inspire. I am not a motivational speaker. We talked about this at dinner last night. Motivation, when you think about it, really has to do with fear. Either you're trying to motivate yourself to overcome some fearful obstacle, or someone's trying to get you to be motivated to help them overcome their fearful obstacle. What I believe I hopefully can do in the time we have is inspire. Because inspiration is very different. An inspirational leader tells a story about his or her past, tells a story of others, and creates a different sense of possibility. And so we inspire, we breathe in together and say, what could we aspire toward? That's what I want to talk about. And when you really think about what matters to you, what really matters to you? And that's what leaders know. This whole talk is based upon one very simple comment that I got from I was working for United Airlines giving some presentations, and this high-ranking official said to me, you know what? We're only as good leaders as we are people. I traveled to Tibet, and here I knew if I traveled to Tibet, I might begin to find that next step of mine, which was to find that sense of inner worth and inner being, because Tibet's been known forever as the place of going within. The mountains of Tibet are enormous, but it was the people of Tibet I wanted to meet, because the Tibetans themselves invented wheels long ago, not for chariots of war, but as a way of looking inward, as an inward technology. So this story is kind of fun in that I'm now traveling through Tibet, and I'm going to places no one's supposed to go. And this presents a problem, because the Chinese police will obviously take you and send you back where you came from. And I learned a very important lesson, which is when they arrest you, simply tell them that you're going where you've been, and you've been where you're going. So when they arrest you, they say, where have you been? They send you back where you want to go, and it works out really well for everybody. So I'm on this bus, see, and it's not a really good bus, but it's a fun bus, and it's full of monks and yak herders. And we're now on this bus, and this guy next to me, we're going across Tibet for days, is a monk. And I don't know his name, but he's sitting there smiling at me for day after day after day, and nothing is ever said. Finally, one day, our bus runs into an obstacle. It's a snowstorm, middle of nowhere. And I grab my stuff. I'm about to leave the bus. And this fellow's name was Tenzing, Lama Tenzing. He said, where are you going? I said, where am I going? You speak English? He says, yes. He had been raised in Darjeeling. I said, why didn't you talk to me for the last few days? He said, well, there was nothing to say. I said, well, great. I said, I'm looking. And he said to me, you're looking for Shangri-La. I said, yes. Now, Shangri-La, if you don't know this, is a word that comes from Shambhala, which the Shangri-La word comes from James Hilton's book, Lost Horizons. Shambhala is the myth of Tibet, that somewhere in this world there lies a place where all people are good and all wisdom is eternal, and you can live forever. But it's a place of enlightenment. So I said to him, yes, I'm looking for Shambhala. And he looked at me and he said, you can look long, but you must not look far. I said, well, thank you very much. I'm out of here. I grabbed my pack and my Tibetan disguise, because, again, this is where you're not supposed to be, and I head off into the wilderness, hoping at some point that I will be able to find some horses, and I will now ride among the ancient Tibetans looking for Shangri-La. About the second or third day out, I was able to find some small horses that I bought for some small change, which could cover some small distances. Now, these horses look great, but this is actually larger than life. In truth, these horses were so small that when I was sitting on them, my feet kind of touched the ground, which was good because I couldn't really fall over, but I couldn't cover much territory. And the funny story about this is that the Chinese police are now after me. And they had these little jeeps. So now they're driving along in these jeeps, chasing me and my little tiny horses up the mountains, kind of like Butch Cassidy in miniature. And I'm riding through the mountains, and I begin to find myself further and further out there, where when I put down my tent in the morning, faces peer in at me, and you discover something. No matter how far you go, you'll always wake up in someone else's backyard. And they'll look at you and say, where have you come from, and what are you doing in my yard? You say, I'm in the middle of nowhere. They say, no, you're in my backyard. Of course, they had never seen a tent before, so to them it was a large, flying, extraterrestrial sort of winged structure that made no sense whatsoever. And as I'm riding my horses, I'm getting further and further out, and people are saying, watch out for the Kampa nomads, because these guys are really going to rip you off. They're going to shoot you, and they're going to take your stuff. So as I come over the hill one day, sure enough, I look around, and there are guys with flintlocks hiding behind bushes. And they walk up to me, pointing their guns. And my whole theory is, people are good, but I really wasn't sure in this moment. And I had a couple of Tibetan phrases. I knew yak podu, which is, this is great, and rok pare, which is, you're my friends. But these seem not to be terrifically appropriate in this moment. But there's a saying that God takes care of idiots and drunks, and I was not intoxicated, so idiocy was all that was left to me at this point. So as they came up to me, I said, yak podu, and they went, ha ha, yak podu. And I went, rok pare, and they went, rok pare. And then I pulled the ace out of my sleeve, my Dalai Lama photographs. These guys are heavy into His Holiness. And as I passed these things out, suddenly I became less else person and more their person. And in fact, the whole story is this. When I came around the next day and they kind of saw me stuck in the snow, my horses had gotten high-centered. It turned out they'd been tailing me for 2 days. And when I got stuck in the snow, they were there, and they pulled me out like the Tibetan Automobile Club. And they led me on the way. And they pointed down the valley, and they said, Shambhala. Oh, my God, I'm there. I crossed the top of this mountain, and down below was this enormous Spielbergian set of monasteries and prayer flags, and you could hear the horns playing. And I rode my horses down this hillside. Again, no one had ever been from the outside world in this area. And the young monks came running out. And they pointed at me and they said, Da Bidza, which I, of course, figured meant, here's the guy from beyond time who has come to help us. Da means large, and Bidza means nose. But no matter. They brought me into the monastery, and this is the view. I mean, this is a great moment. You walk in these rooms, the monks are chanting, and the lights are all butter lamp, and it smells like a strange, well, it's all yak butter. But the golden color, it's kind of like lobster, like being in a room full of lobster butter, you know, and the monks are chanting, and you look up, there's this enormous golden Buddha, and something happens. You know, you sit there. I sat there for days waiting to meet the High Lama because the High Lama was going to see me. I think, I found Shambhala. And sure enough, one day the little monks say, come on, come with us, you know, and I follow them, and it's my friend the Lama from the bus, who wanted to hear the talking heads one more time because we had shared this on the bus. And he looked at me and he said, see, I told you, you can look long, but you must not look far. I said, great. And then he said to me, I will show you Shambhala. And he takes me down the steps to the very front of the monastery, and he shows me Shambhala. This is a wheel, another wheel, yet another wheel, a circle. This is called the Wheel of Life. It's kind of like Milton Bradley's Game of Enlightenment, and I won't go into the whole story here, except to tell you that what's on the outside is basically the soap opera. It's all aging and loving and having children and making money and all that sort of stuff. It's the stuff that keeps us away from ourselves. As you go closer to the center, and by the way, this was devised because way back when, the days of Padmasambhava in the 12th century, people couldn't read. And so they depicted everything the Buddha had to teach on a colorful wheel suitable for people under the age of 5. But the core is the core. This is, there's a pig, there's a snake, and there's a rooster. The pig, obviously, is greed. The snake is anger, and the rooster is ignorance. And what the Lama said, it all starts with the rooster. Because if you are angry, it's because you're not having your greed satisfied. When you understand the ignorance of your desire, suddenly life becomes clear. He basically said it's a question of living the things that you truly believe and living the things that truly matter. He said if you want to find true Shambhala, you have to go north. I said, well, what do you mean? Like up to China? Further north. You mean like to Siberia? Further north. I said, then you're in the North Pole. You mean Santa Claus lives in Shambhala? He said, further north. I said, you can't go further north. You come back to the United States where I live. He said, that's where it is. It's your own heart. It's your own hands. You must start there and work outward. Shambhala is either in your own heart or it's nowhere at all.